Information shared on the following program is for general information purposes only. It does not constitute legal, tax, investment, or other advice, nor is it intended to recommend any particular investments, products, or financial instruments. Always seek advice from your financial advisor, attorney, or accountant with regard to investment, legal, or tax questions.
Pretty impressive use of buckets. Now let's see how useful our financial buckets can be.
Welcome to the only show in the country dedicated to helping savers worry less about money, the Worry-Free Retirement, with your host, six-time author and fiduciary, Tony Walker.
Of all the many items found in America's home today, I would venture to say that one of the most common household items is a bucket. Ask any homeowner, farmer, or yes, even this young man drumming buckets on the side of a busy street corner, and you'll discover that buckets are one of the most popular gadgets known to man. Now, why is this? Well, first of all, seeing as though a bucket is basically a hollow shell attached to a handle, buckets are simply constructed and simple to use. Heck, buckets are so simple, it's been said that two kids by the names of Jack and Jill were able to fetch some water with one. In fact, buckets are extremely practical and although simple in nature, highly functional and can be used for all sorts of different projects. Their construction is usually that of a very hard plastic, which makes them light yet sturdy enough to hold large amounts of liquids or solid materials with ease. Yet, with all of these wonderful qualities of buckets, there's one huge problem: leaking. You see, a bucket can leak, and it can leak very slowly, and over time you can lose whatever is in that bucket. Now, what do leaky buckets have to do with your retirement? As we'll see today, the type of financial bucket or buckets you invest in could determine whether you have an enjoyable retirement or a worrisome one. Well, welcome folks to the Worry-Free Retirement, and I am that little man in the sweater vest, 401k rollover specialist, retirement planning specialist, and fiduciary Tony Walker. And today I'm going to share with you our proprietary use of financial buckets, something we call the Worry-Free Split Ira Concept, and how this concept is so simple and so highly effective in helping savers get a handle on their money and how we can keep your retirement leak-proof with our financial buckets. Before we get into the meat of the show, let's talk about America's favorite financial sidekick, Mr. Aaron Orander at the helm, along with his favorite financial sidekick, our technical and graphics director, Miss Megan Murphy. Oh, incidentally, the date of this recording is February 11th, 2020. And not only is that today's date, today, on this day, 60 years ago, in a dark and damp delivery room at Central Baptist Hospital in Lexington, Kentucky, yours truly was thrust from the comfort of my mother's womb and into this rough and tumble world. So there you go, folks. In fact, we've even found a picture of when the whole sweater vest thing started, which was at a very young age. That's right, I've been wearing sweater vests a long, long time. Rare footage indeed. All right, enough about Tony's birthday, which appears nobody in the office has noticed, but that's okay. Let's keep moving. Back to our subjects of buckets of money. You know, when it comes to figuring out how to best use and enjoy your money in retirement, this whole concept of when to start spending your money can be downright scary. That's because up until the date you decide to retire or cut back on working, the income that you've been so comfortable in earning and living on all of a sudden stops or possibly drastically reduces. This income, which obviously came by you working, now has to be supplied to you from another source. Now, hopefully, from this money that you've worked so hard to save. And it's not just your 401k that could be a source of income to live on. You might have a pension, you could have Social Security, you might even received an inheritance, or just simply money you've saved over the years in a CD or brokerage account. It really doesn't matter where the money is invested. What really matters is how in the world are you going to know where to invest your money and then use it and spend it without the fear of running out. You know, as a result of this TV show and airing it each week on 8 different stations, we get a ton of calls and website visits requesting that I take a look at people's finances and their retirement. And obviously, since that's what I'm in the business of doing, helping people plan for their retirement, I meet all kinds of folks with all kinds of concerns. But to me, the biggest problem savers have is not really a concern at this point to them, but not having a simple process in place where they can use and enjoy the money and make sure that it lasts as long as they do. So here's the solution, what we'll be talking about today. It's called our WorryFree Split Ira Concept. It's a bucket approach to visualizing your money and then flowing that money out to you now and also during your lifetime. I created this process about 15 years ago and it recently was trademarked, and it is time-tested, folks. This is something that allows you to have your cake and eat it too. Now, keep in mind, most money managers out there are not retirement planning specialists. They don't provide you a game plan like this, and in many cases, as we'll see later on, some of the buckets they give you due to fees, taxes, and other things are leaking. This is where the worry-free split IRA concept is different. So when I return, we're going to dive into this concept and see how effective it is for you tracking your retirement, keeping an eye on things, and more importantly, how to use and enjoy your money without the fear of running out of it. You're watching The Worry-Free Retirement. I'll be right back.
The 3 biggest commitments you'll ever make are marriage, your career, and who you'll trust with your money in retirement. So who are you going to trust? Don't leave your retirement to chance. Do yourself a favor and plan on attending well-known retirement planning specialist Tony Walker's next free educational workshop, The Ages and Stages of Retirement, Monday, March 16th in Louisville and Tuesday, March 17th in E-Town. Learn how to be worry-free in retirement. These workshops are free, but registration is required. So log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com.
Shortly after 9/11, following 3 straight years of stock market declines, I was trying to manage money for people by investing their money in the stock market. Now, after watching many of my clients worry sick over the losses in their accounts, and me as well worrying sick about those losses as well, I decided to focus solely on what I call the saver personality. Now, a saver is someone who is defined as follows: someone who is more concerned with the return of their money than on it. Now, my mission of helping savers worry less about money was not something I dreamed up on the way to work one day. As someone who majored in psychology, I knew that people were hardwired in certain ways, that we are different in terms of what we are willing to save for, and in the future, how much we're willing to risk. So I decided to classify people into one of 3 financial personalities. I wrote a book about this called The 3 Personalities of Money. I paid good money to some psychologists trained in how to research this subject for me so that I could create a very simple test, which of course you can take for free by logging on to this website. It's called 3personalities.com. And in less than 5 minutes, you will discover your predominant financial personality. Now, why would you want to do this? Well, so that you can invest in things that are suited to you, rather than what the financial world tells you ought to be peddling and buying. In our practice, we choose to work and assist only the saver personality. This show, the content that it deals with, is the only TV show that I'm aware of that focuses solely on the minds and hearts of savers. Now, most of the other stuff you see out there on TV and the internet, really that is for investors and speculators, not savers. So as you watch this show, you're not going to hear a lot about investments as much as you'll hear about how to safely use, enjoy, and protect your money. Yet, please keep in mind, while we don't talk a lot about investing your money in stocks, bonds, and mutual funds, that doesn't mean I hate stocks. I'm fine with savers investing some of their money in the stock market, as evidenced by the fact that I'm a registered investment advisor. At Tony Walker Financial, to prove that we don't hate the stock market, since starting our investment platform with Charles Schwab back in April of 2017, we now have over 1,100 clients investing their money through us, with Charles Schwab as the custodian, totaling over $90 million. That's money that our offices personally oversees with Charles Schwab as the custodian for our clients. So when you invest with Tony Walker Financial, you don't ever have a 1-800 number that you have to call. You call us directly. And that's the unique part of what we call the Split Ira Concept. We handle all the details. You just sit back and relax and enjoy the ride. So the question is this: how can we set up a game plan for savers that allows them to know where their money is invested, how it's invested, and when can they start spending some of this money without the fear of running out? And most importantly, how do we keep the buckets from linking along the way? You know, losing valuable dollars in the process is very costly, whether it's fees, taxes, inflation. Our job is to try to plug those holes that exist in your current investment buckets. Now, what I'm going to do when I return, I'm going to share with you an actual case of some leaky buckets. Some buckets that are costing these individuals not hundreds of dollars a year, but thousands of dollars a year. And we're going to show you how our Split IRA concept is going to come in and rescue them from all of these fees. Bear with me. I'm getting ready to get the whiteboard out. We're going to get the big boy out because there's so much information to share on this next segment. Really good. So if you're sitting there, you got an old 401k, maybe you've got money languishing in the bank, just received an inheritance, and especially if you're having trouble figuring out how all these advisors are compensated on your money, good stuff coming up. Let me get the whiteboard out. You are watching the Worry-Free Retirement.
And now it's time for the adventures of Stella, Scout, and Ivy.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
You've been watching the adventures of Stella, Scout, and Ivy.
Worried about running out of money in retirement? Then download Mailbox Money for Life from six-time author and retirement planning specialist Tony Walker. Just log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. That's TonyWalkerFinancial.com.
The three biggest commitments you'll ever make are marriage, your career, and who you'll trust with your money in retirement. So who are you going to trust? Don't leave your retirement to chance. Do yourself a favor and plan on attending well-known retirement planning specialist Tony Walker's next free educational workshop, The Ages and Stages of Retirement, Monday, March 16th in Louisville and Tuesday, March 17th in E-Town. Learn how to be worry-free in retirement. These workshops are free, but registration is required. So log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com.
So what if there was a way to set up what we call certain buckets, make sure those buckets aren't leaking inappropriately, and figure out how to use and enjoy the money inside those buckets now and also later, and of course, where you don't run out of money? Well, that's what the Worry-Free Retirement Split IRA concept is all about. Now, I'm going to illustrate how it works compared to the other guys, we'll call them, and it can be different for different advisors, but this is an actual case I'm working on right now. Now keep in mind, folks, I average seeing 30 to 35 people per week. I'm out in the financial trenches. This is just not a TV show where I'm taking questions. My life's work is helping savers worry less about money. This is what I do for a living. So everything I share on the show is things that I've seen out in the financial trenches, and this is one of them. So in this example, what we did, we're going to say the other guys, this person came in, a couple, and they had all of this paperwork. I mean, mountains and reams of paperwork. And one of their complaints was, Tony, we like our broker. He's a nice fella, but every time we ask about fees, the person never wants to share in detail how they're compensated. And it's kind of funny. There's somebody that advertises a lot on TV, and I love what they always say. It's a great saying. It says, we do better when you do better. And then I always want to say, yeah, but what if I do worse? Are you going to still do better? And the answer is yes, they still do better. So that's not really a good solution. We're going to show you that better solution. But anyway, I started looking at their information. They had approximately $200,000 with this advisor in what we call a brokerage account, stocks, bonds, mutual funds. And then they had a variable annuity. We don't do variable annuities because of the fees, of $400,000. Okay? So let's take a look. And when I said, basically, I can figure out pretty quickly what the fees are, and they said, well, we can't. Tell us what they are. So here's what they are. I figured out, and this is where the leak started, okay, that the advisor on this bucket is charging 2% per year. Well, what does that translate into? That translates into $4,000 a year. I'm going to put brackets around that, in annual fees. Now, that's whether they make money, whether they do better, you do better, who cares? The point is, that is a lot of money, but we're not done. Then we came over to the variable annuity, okay, a real big leak here. The variable annuity with all of its fees charged approximately 3.5%. Folks, 3.5%, my cheat notes here, of $400,000 every year. And this is hard to believe, I know. Every year, $14,000 in fees. That's an average of 3% in cost. All right? That means they've got to make 3% every year just to get back to break even. So we have a total cost, a total fees, total leakage of $18,000 a year. Can you imagine if we had that money back? Think how much less risk we'd have to take if we just had the $18,000 back in our pocket. So what I'm going to propose to them is what we call the worry-free split IRA concept. I'm going to walk through this very slowly because it's going to be very similar in a way. What we're going to do is take the brokerage account. We're going to put that through our Charles Schwab platform. And yes, we do charge fees for that. But the difference is our fee, our leakage, is only 0.8% on the $200,000. Let me do the math real quick. Remember over here, 2% of $200,000 is $4,000 a year in fees. 0.8% of $200,000 is only $1,600 a year. That's a big savings. Now, since we don't do variable annuities, and in this example, we didn't really need to add any mailbox money on, but we wanted protection, okay? We wanted some decent growth, but we didn't want any fees in this example. We didn't want any risk. And since I just make a one-time commission on this transaction, it doesn't come out of the bucket. We can explain that. In fact, as we're talking about annuities here, why don't you go to our website right now, TonyWalkerFinancial.com, because in that website you can download something called the Annuity Decision Guide for Savers. It'll help explain what the surrender charges are on annuities, how agents and advisors get paid. But basically in this example though, there are no fees because why? Because we're going to use a fixed annuity, no income riders, no nothing, okay? Just a fixed annuity with no fees. So we have no fees here. So let's think about this. Over here, this gentleman is collecting, or somebody's collecting, him and the financial institutions, the insurance companies writing the variable annuities, $18,000 a year. Our total charge for everything is $1,600 a year. Now, I don't know about you folks, but that's $16,400 a year, and I'm going to put this, in savings. Now, where people get lost a little bit on this, let's imagine we save them that kind of money. Forget what the rate of return is up here. Folks, this is not about rate of return. As Wall Street has duped you into thinking it's all about rate of return, what we're trying to do for retirees and savers is protect the money and earn a reasonable rate of return at the least amount of cost. There's a huge difference. So already, I've got $16,400 that I have because I don't have any fees versus if I keep doing this deal. So if I take the $16,400, even if I only make 3% interest on it for 20 years, I didn't do the calculation on this because it's way into the $100,000 range. So here's the point. A lot of people say, well, if I only had another couple $100,000, I would be a lot more worry-free, Tony. Can you help grow my money for another $200,000? And I'd say, wait a minute, when you start mentioning growth, it's not guaranteed. See the problem? So what we do is we guarantee the principal here with annuities. We have 5, we'll talk about this next week, by the way. We have 5 different portfolios that we manage personally that you can choose for the Charles Schwab platform. We can do very, very ultra conservative all the way up to aggressive if you want to get frisky and put some money in the stock market. But the key is here is the savings. So maybe that's you right now. You're sitting there saying, Tony, you're talking my language, buddy. I don't even know what the advisors are charging me. I keep hearing all these ads about people doing well when I do better, but I'm worried if this market tanks, I'm going to lose money and they're still going to do better. How can I arm myself to protect more of my principal and keep these costs down? How can I kind of plug the leaks on some of these buckets? Well, the only way you're going to find out is you got to meet with me in person. Folks, I've done this for over 35 years. I've literally sat down with more than 15,000 people. This is all I do is look at people's financial stuff. I've done it a long time and I'm very good at it. And the beauty is if you choose to work with us and if you move your money over to our process under the WorryFree Split Ira, I've got a lot of staff that helps provide support services. In fact, in our Bowling Green offices, that's where our hub is located, I have 8 full-time employees. Now, what's their role? Their role is to make sure that we follow the process and continue to get you money at the least amount of cost. So take advantage of at least talking to me. There's no cost or obligation. Easy to do so. All you got to do is go to TonyWalkerFinancial.com, click on that Let's Get Started, and we can make that happen real soon. Well, does the Bible have anything to say about leakage and buckets and what God can do to fill up those buckets again? You bet. Good stuff coming up. I got to get me a cup of coffee. You stay tuned. You're watching the Worry-Free Retirement. Have you recently retired, been laid off, or offered a pension buyout? Has the company you work for moved, been acquired, or closed its doors forever? And finally, do you have a 401k with a previous employer you'd like to move to safer territory? Then take advantage of this opportunity to move your 401k or lump sum pension to Tony Walker Financial. Let's meet in person to discuss your retirement options. Log on now to TonyWalkerFinancial.com to schedule your free, no obligation appointment. Let us help you today.
The 3 biggest commitments you'll ever make are marriage, your career, and who you'll trust with your money in retirement. So who are you going to trust? Don't leave your retirement to chance. Do yourself a favor and plan on attending well-known retirement planning specialist Tony Walker's next free educational workshop, The Ages and Stages of Retirement, Monday, March 16th in Louisville and Tuesday, March 17th in E-Town. Learn how to be worry-free in retirement. These workshops are free, but registration is required. So log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com.
Hey, Aaron, before we go live, has anybody mentioned anything about my birthday?
No, Tony, sorry, nobody's mentioned your birthday. In fact, I think everybody forgot. And one more thing, we're live.
Oh, sorry, folks. Welcome back to the Worry-Free Retirement. And we are at our final segment to see if the Bible has anything to say about these leaky buckets we've been talking about. So let's turn to the book of John, beginning in chapter 2. And we see an interesting scene play out. The setting is a wedding, and Jesus and his disciples are invited to this wedding. Oh, speaking of weddings, in case I didn't tell you, today's my birthday. And as I hearken back on the past, I stumbled across a picture of mine in Susan's wedding back in 1983. Pictured with me and Susan is my late father-in-law, who was responsible for getting me into this business back in 1984, Mr. Bill Moore, and his mother, whom we affectionately referred to as Mommy Moore. Oh, funny story about our wedding. My dad, who was a part-time musician, brought his saxophone to our wedding reception, and he, along with some random people, were going to be the entertainment. Hey, folks, this was the 80s. Nobody spent a bunch of money on weddings back then. But anyway, I walk into the ballroom of the reception with my new bride, and my dad hollers out, "Hey, Tony, did you bring your bass?" I'm like, "What?" You know, I played bass guitar, and my response to my father was as follows.
"Come on, man. Come on."
Anyway, as I'm reading the book of John, and we see verse 2 that at this particular wedding, Jesus and his disciples show up. Now, wouldn't that be cool? The Son of God casually showing up at your wedding. Anyway, while the guests are all pigging out on the food and drinking all the wine, in verse 3, we see that a lot of leakage of wine is going on and the wine runs out. You ever have a function like that where you have food and beverages and you're serving your guests? After realizing the party is getting ready to turn ugly with no more wine, Jesus' mother, I assume out of desperation, goes to him and says the following, "They have no wine." Now Jesus responds in a seemingly terse manner as follows in verse 4. He says, "Woman, what do I have to do with you? My hour has not yet come." Now, instead of immediately taking care of the wine problem, which he will, Jesus reminds his mother that he didn't come to earth to fill empty buckets with new wine, but rather to fill empty souls with His Spirit. In verse 7, Jesus tells the head waiter to go ahead and fill up 20 and 30-gallon pots with water, and these are some big pots, by the way. And not only does He tell them to fill it up with water, but to fill them up to the brim. Verse 10 says the waiter rebukes Jesus by saying, "Every man serves the good wine first, and when the men have drunk freely, then the wine which is poor, you shall have kept the good wine until now." In other words, get them all liquored up on the good stuff, and then let's serve them the bad stuff, the dull, cheap stuff, last. You see, man always starts off promising things that in the end he cannot deliver on. What appears to be fulfilling today will soon be empty tomorrow. The good stuff always starts out good, but never really lasts. But not so with God. Because assuming you're a follower of Christ, you know that Jesus' hour has already came. It came 2,000 years ago at the cross. And that very hour He died for you and me, and by faith He poured out into our bodies this new wine, what we call His Holy Spirit. And believe me, folks, it's far better than anything the world could serve up. You know, Jesus said something in Matthew chapter 9, verse 17. He says, "Nor do men put new wine into old wineskins. Otherwise, the wineskins burst and the wine pours out and the wineskins are ruined. But they put new wine into fresh wineskins and both are preserved." In other words, simply by asking, Jesus will give you a new hope and a new life far better than anything you and I can drum up. And quite frankly, it'll brim all the way to the top, and you can take that to the bank. Well, how about you? You may be saying, "Tony, that's great, but can we get back to my leaky retirement bucket and how I can make sure that my financial well doesn't run dry in retirement?" Or friend, let me tell you this. While I cannot turn water into wine, I can make sure that you have a process in place that allows you to enjoy your money without the fear of running out. It's called the Split Ira Concept. And we have done this concept for years, and most importantly, we have a team of service experts that can make sure that this process is available to you and your family both now and eventually when you pass away. We can make sure that you don't have those leaky buckets going on, and as a fiduciary, I can assure you I'm going to do my best to make sure that we stay on top of your planning process from now and through retirement. To find out more about the Split IRA or to meet with me in person, it's very easy to do. All you do is log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. Now, once there, you're going to click on the Let's Get Started button. Well, until next time, folks, I've enjoyed being with you today. Next week's show is going to be really interesting. I've never done this before. We're going to take a deep dive into that one bucket, that Charles Schwab bucket. What is it? Who is Charles Schwab? And how does Tony Walker Financial interact with Charles Schwab as a custodian? And how is that going to benefit you? So between now and next week, between now and the next time we see each other, if all else fails, you remember to be worry-free. Make it a good one.